Hi there, welcome back. I'm Pam and we're in my kitchen again where I share with you some of my favorite recipes or those that are most requested by my friends and family. Today we're going to be making a Greek appetizer called Tiropitakia or Tiropita. A little shorter version, easier to say. It translates from Greek to English cheese pie. Now we're not actually making a pie. We're going to be making some little phyllo wrapped triangular shaped pastries with 3 cheeses inside. And this is a recipe that I got from my husband's grandma, and I'd like to share it with you because it's really easy and it's not complicated to put together. It doesn't take a lot of ingredients and it's not that expensive to make. So I think you're going to like this, especially for the holidays. So let's get started. First thing I want to show you again, a box of phyllo comes in the freezer section of your grocery store. There's different brands. This is the one that I find most often. It has 2 packages, 2 rolls in it. Today we're only going to use 1. Phyllo dries out very quickly. So when we're using it, we want to cover it with a damp towel. And I like to, if it's just mildly damp, it's fine. But if you get it too wet, put a piece of wax paper over your phyllo, then put the towel on top of it. But when it comes out of the bag, it looks like this. See if, oh, I already took it out of the bag. I was looking for that. Okay, so you unroll it. And like I've said before in my other videos, sometimes phyllo can really be great stuff and you get high quality phyllo, and other times you're just very frustrated with it. Usually it's good. And this one feels and looks really nice. It's soft and pliable, but we don't want it to dry out or it's going to crack all over the place. So I'm going to grab a towel, a thin towel out of the drawer, and just run it under the water a little bit, not soaking it, just making it damp. This will be good. And then just cover your phyllo. I'm a little concerned about whether that's a little too damp, so I'm going to take a piece of wax paper and do that and then cover it. Now we won't have a problem with our phyllo drying out. Okay, so we have 3 cheeses in this recipe. We have a ricotta, feta, and some Reggiano Parmesan cheese. Now, use whole milk when you're buying ricotta cheese. And when you're buying feta, buy the block. It comes with a little bit of liquid in here. We're going to drain it. That's why this is sitting like this. I've got a paper towel down there just collecting the moisture, and I'll just take it out and we'll use this bowl. But feta should be sheep and goat's milk if you're going to get real good feta. And usually it will say made in Greece. So I have found this at Walmart, and I can get good feta at Trader Joe's. But if you buy the crumbled stuff in the little container, you're going to get cow's milk feta. It's not going to be as flavorful, but if that's all you can find or that's what you prefer, it tends to be a little more mild, you can use that. This is the good stuff right here. Okay, so I've got my bowl, and as you can see, this has been draining for a couple hours, and you don't want this moisture in your filling, or you're going to have a soggy filling, and you're going to see when we start wrapping these that it doesn't work very well because it runs all over the place, and we don't want that to happen. So there, I've wiped out my bowl. I've gotten rid of the moisture. That is my ricotta. This is my feta. I'm going to crumble it. It comes in a block like this. Just crumble it really well. I'm using half a recipe here today, but when I post the recipe, it will be double these amounts. I just don't need to make a whole lot of it while I'm showing this to you. So I've just cut it back. But crumble up the feta so you don't have any big chunks. Our Parmigiano Reggiano goes in. We're going to take a spoon and mix this up really well. I know some people really don't like feta, but don't let this recipe scare you, because with the other cheeses, it's really mild. You don't really even taste feta, to be honest. Okay, so we've got our cheeses mixed up. It's pretty stiff and dense. Now, cheese is typically salty, so you don't need to add a lot of salt, if any. It's up to you. But because this is just cheese right now, and we haven't added our raw egg, we can taste it. So I'm going to give it a little taste. I think there's plenty of cheese, or excuse me, salt. I don't need to add any. But if you like things saltier, go ahead. This is fresh ground pepper. Doesn't have to be fresh ground, but it will be nicer if you have it. But if not, just put in some pepper, stir it up. Another option is dill. I love dill, so I add dill to a lot of things. If you don't like dill, don't put it in. When Grandma made this, it was just the cheeses. Actually, she only used feta. That's it. But I have a Greek cookbook, and it's one of those authentic cookbooks from the Greek Orthodox Church, and the ladies all put their recipes in. And most of the recipes, they mixed the cheeses. It wasn't just feta. But Grandma taught me how to make this like 40 years ago, and she just had feta. So, and she didn't add any seasoning either other than pepper. But I like a little dill. This is dried, and I find that dry works nicely. Fresh is always better, usually. But if you're going to use fresh, you need to dice it up really small, because dill is stringy, and you don't want, a lot of stringiness in your mixture. So there, I've got my dill and my pepper. I'd say definitely add the pepper. Again, the dill is optional. Now, I'm going to use 1 egg today, but the recipe is going to call for 2. And if your eggs are fresh, they won't be the whites won't be too runny, which is a good thing. So we're just going to beat this egg up, and then we're going to drop it in there and mix it in. You can see this is still pretty thick. We need it to be thick because we don't want our filling running all over the place. So let me grab a spatula so I can scrape this down. All right, I have melted butter here. It's unsalted butter. You do not want to use salted butter. It would be way too salty. Anytime you're using phyllo, use unsalted butter. I take this off. I'm going to remove this now, and I'm going to pull up one of these sheets. Now you see it's torn. It's not a big deal. It does tear. It's better when it doesn't, but for this particular recipe, it just won't matter at all that you have a tear. It looks like it might have torn through some of them. So I'm going to pull my butter over close. Let some of it drip off the brush, because it just gets too soggy if you use everything that's in the brush. And when you're brushing it, brush it this way rather than the long way. It tends to work better. So now it doesn't tear the sheets. We're going to fold these in thirds. So just fold your long sheet in thirds. And then we're going to drop some butter on it again. Don't saturate it, just get some butter there. And then we're going to take our scoop, that's a bit much. We're going to put a nice dollop. That might be a bit much, we'll see. And then we're going to fold it like a flag. You're just going to turn it and fold it, and it's going to enclose the filling. And we have this cute little triangular packet with our cheese inside, and we're going to put it on our cookie sheet. We're going to do the same thing again. All right, so just going to dribble some of this butter on our phyllo. We're going to fold it in thirds. Cross it over again. It does not have to be exact. You don't need to press it down because when you add the butter, it's going to do that. Okay. We're going to take a scoop of our filling, put it right there on the end, fold it up like a flag. That's all there is to it. Okay, so we've got a full tray ready to go in the oven. Now let's say I didn't want to eat these right now, that I wanted to prepare them and serve them at a gathering tomorrow or next week or whatever. All you need to do is put them in the freezer just like this. Let them freeze hard, a couple hours. Take them out of the freezer and put them in a freezer bag. When you want to use them, take out your cookie sheet, line it with parchment paper, lay down your Tiropitakia, single layer with a little space between, brush them with some melted, unsalted butter, and bake them in your oven. You don't even have to wait for them to thaw. I mean, by the time you get them out and put them on the cookie sheet and brush them with butter, they'll be partially thawed anyway. But I'm going to bake these and show you what they look like when they come out. See you in a bit. Alrighty, these appetizers are almost ready to come out of the oven. Now something I want to back up a little bit. Before, earlier I told you if you're going to freeze some of them, to just put them in the freezer on the cookie sheet, and that's exactly what you do, but I would recommend that you brush them with butter before you freeze them on the tops. Don't wait till you're going to bake them, because sometimes freezers, especially if you forget and you leave them in there uncovered in your freezer, and 5 hours later you're like, oh my goodness, and the phyllo could dry out. So go ahead and brush them with butter, and that will not happen. And then just bag them up and use them when you need them. Now, I want to talk to you about thawing phyllo. That box that I showed you, it's in the freezer section at the grocery store. If you're not going to use it right away, put it in your freezer. But if you're buying it to use soon, like the next day, which you're going to have to do because it absolutely has to freeze, or thaw, for a day. So I took it out of my freezer yesterday and I put it in my refrigerator overnight. And then I set it on the counter for an hour before I actually started the video, because it needs to sit at room temperature as well. So I just wanted to remind you of those things. I also wanted to tell you that I wasn't kidding when I said you can't walk away from phyllo. If the dog or the kids or something distracts you and you walk away from it while you're working with it and you don't have it covered, this is a sheet of phyllo that dried out in a very short amount of time. I do that with all my phyllo videos because I'm just seriously not kidding, and it will ruin your whole recipe because then your phyllo will be dry and you'd have to go buy more and thaw it overnight. It would just be a nightmare. So anyway, let's grab these. I think they're about ready. Alrighty, look at those. Aren't they pretty? Now, you'll see that this one over here, some of the filling seeped out. Sometimes that happens depending on either how you wrap it, and I might have been careless and going rather quickly, or I may have filled it just a little too much, but it doesn't matter. You can just trim that off. They're really beautiful though, aren't they? They're a very impressive appetizer. And if you serve these at your next gathering, I promise you your friends are going to be impressed, and they're going to taste them, and they're going to want the recipe. So I'm going to cut into one. I'm not going to bite into it though, because it's just out of the oven and it's super hot. But just got that nice cheesy filling, and they're crispy on the outside and warm on the inside. Now, they're good at room temperature. I like eating them like that. They don't have to be piping hot. They make a great appetizer, like I said, but you can also serve them with a salad and it makes a nice lunch. So anyway, I hope you try the recipe. Thank you for watching. Bye.